The final keynote speaker today from a professor in Germany. We conference by Martin. Good morning, Professor Michelin. Yes, I hope you have a wonderful morning today, right? The time very
thank you.
Different 6 hours from Vietnam behind in Germany. Thank you so much for your presentation today.
And now you should see a blank page. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a real honor after visiting UTC last year in September to take once again part in an academic event of the University of Transport and Communication. So thank you very much. After all the presentations on technologies in the previous keynotes, I'd like to add one more dimension to that. It's not just technologies, but for sustainable transport, we also need talents. And that will be sort of the guiding line for my presentation. So let's get started with some impressions and why talents are so important. Coming from Germany, we still work on our sustainable transport systems like the German railways that used to be quite famous. Our next project we want to introduce is an integrated timetable, but unfortunately that project has been postponed to the year 2070, which is quite far away. The crisis is quite urgent. If we look at some typical cities and regions, you see here that on single days, 257 of 260 commuter trains had to be cancelled. Not due to strike, but just due to staff shortages and other problems. While once Germany was very well known for its good working transport system, this crisis hasn't slipped international notice. So even in UK, that used to be a used to have some problems 1 and 2 decades ago. Now they observe Germany with the statement, it's the same daily misery. Germany's terrible trains are no joke anymore for a nation built on efficiency. These are not just single events, but we really have a sort of severe issue here. And that can be underpinned by some figures, what will come on the next slide. So 1 year ago, we've seen by a study published by the German Center for Railway-Related Research that more and more jobs in the railway and transport sector are taken by outsiders as we face a permanent shortage of qualified staff. In Germany, there are 100,000 engineering positions, more or less, in the railway sector. And to keep that number, we would need about 5,000 graduates per year. The universities only manage an output of roughly 1,000. So there is a gap, and the gap is growing bigger and bigger each year. Just 8 months ago, the German Association of Transport Companies, the VDV, published a survey that in 2022, half of all member companies, 50%, 49%, had to reduce services due to staff shortages. Reduced services means cutting lines, increasing the frequency or reducing frequency for single days, for whole weekends, for whole weeks. So that's quite an issue. And by 2030, it's figures from the same survey, due to demographic aging, we would need to restaff 25% of all positions, not just academic positions, but all positions. And by 2030, again, we would need an additional 20% of staff to meet the growing traffic demand. So regarding the sustainable transport and sustainable transport systems. The challenges are quite clear. For sustainable transport systems, with the hopefully growing passenger and freight volumes, we will need a model shift, an energy transition, and the digitization. And we need all three of those, and urgently. The effects of these transitions are already factored in for future capacity and performance. While the challenges are clear, the railroad is rocky. So sustainable transport systems, and that's one of my key messages today, is more than just another app or more than just another technology. We have a number of gaps, like indicated, the model shift, the energy transition, and the digitization. Moreover, there's a second big gap, and that's the qualification research. If the transport sector will need to grow, it needs to grow with fewer workforce in changing job profiles. So, with qualifications on a higher formal level of education and training. So we really have a new research topic with the qualification research within the transport domain. And these gaps and challenges lead me to the title of today's keynote, the concept and skills for transformation as a means to support sustainable transport and the adaptation to increase or to help this transition. For the next minutes, I put down and like to put forward three guiding questions. So the first one will be, which core concepts drive the transition towards sustainable transport systems? The second one, which skills are required to overcome present challenges? And the third one, how do we identify and fill skill gaps in transport-related training and academic education? These questions translate into the following outline. So in the first part, we will look into the concepts and the core concepts for these three identified gaps. And in the second part, we'll look into skills research and providing the know-how for sustainable transport systems. And I will finally end with a short discussion and conclusion. So now let's get started with the concepts for the transition. The first concept, the first core concept, I want to explain a little in more detail, is the model shift and the transport transitions. And I will illustrate them with some pictures from, this you may know, the Reunification Express at Hai Van Pass in Vietnam. It's on the main corridor from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, where we have 5 to 7 expresses each day, taking about 30 to 40 hours for that 1,700 kilometer journey. It's a narrow gauge system, long trains, low average speeds, many stops. So that's the situation right now. We will see what's being discussed. Another narrow gauge system that's from New Zealand, where there's almost no passenger transport anymore. And the Kiwi Rail running the system focuses largely on freight services. We'll see the model split numbers in a second. So it's, again, an old narrow gauge system, but reduced to a main trunk now and some branch lines and only freight services. The only passenger services we see, you see here, are some touristic trains, for example, on the southern island crossing the Southern Alps. So let's look at some numbers. The model split in Vietnam and New Zealand. In 2013, passenger model split for the long distance or the main trunk was about 5%. and for freight it was 5 to 9%, depending on the section of the north-south corridor. In New Zealand, freight makes up about 15%, and for the whole country on railways, and public transit, that's basically the touristic trains and some public transit in Auckland and Wellington, well below 5%. So while the topographic challenges with many mountains and long distances are quite similar, we see a big difference in population. And this leads to really different approaches. So in Vietnam, there are discussions on a high-speed rail line from Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City, but the decision is open regarding which speeds and if it's just for passenger or if it's also for mixed operations. This will incorporate a new standard gauge main line, so rather than disruptive approach. In New Zealand, as I explained earlier, we see a strong focus on container freight, and the passenger rail right now is mainly for tourists and some commuting in the really big cities. So that's rather an evolutionary approach. So my message in this part is that upgrading systems and pushing for a model shift requires a deep understanding of the different systems, of the subsystems and domains. We see later that this applies to the other core concepts as well. So the second big trend and the big transition we see is the energy transition. Again, I'll start with some illustrations. You all will know the bus rapid transit system in Hanoi, picture I took last year. Presently, it's still run with diesel buses, but there are also electric buses running in Hanoi. It will be only a matter of time when this will be electric, either with trolley bus technology or stationary charging. Stationary charging of buses is widespread, starting to be widespread. Here we see an example of a electric charging of 2 buses on the main hub in Osnabrück in Germany. Quite common technology, and that will, for buses, the system is quite clear. It's more difficult on the freight, road freight, and I just want to illustrate that with one picture of a research project I followed and took part in for some years in Germany. That's the electric trucks on highways, on motorways with a catenary supply. So again, different solutions, and we need to put them in context. Road transport will need to decarbonize. The transport volumes continue to grow, so will their emissions. And by 2030, the road freight will very likely claim the biggest share of transport emissions. That's a pressing target again, as there's a variety of electrification and zero-emission technologies that evolve and mature. We see different charging technologies, stationary and continuous. We see hydrogen, power to gas, power to liquid, and all their possible combinations. So the decision-making is very complex, but due to the different infrastructure needs, high vehicle costs, the dependency on the power supply grids, and the uncertain battery resources. Furthermore, system design needs to consider usage and ridership, traffic volumes, public versus private ownership of infrastructures and vehicles, the integration into existing networks, acceptance, and so on and so on. Again, we see different technical domains and also different social scientists, economics are involved. Again, a complicated field where we need to come up with interdisciplinary approaches. This, as an example, how such a transition could be designed, I put down this graphic here. It's taken from the German Ministry for Transport, and that's the roadmap for the energy transition in the road freight over a time scale you see from 2020 to 2030 and long term with different technologies being being tested and being evaluated, battery electric vehicles for long distance operations, hydrogen applications, and overhead hybrid or ERS solutions. And you see all the different research tasks and decision points related to that. Unfortunately, each area, each country, each region will need to make and to come up with such a strategy and plan that incorporates the local restrictions. The last core concept I want to discuss relates to the digitization, and I just took one single aspect of that, being the domain models. What are domain models? Domain models are in public transit quite useful and standard. They came up 10 to 15 years ago, and they model the data flow between the different departments of a transport company. Like we've seen the colleague from Kuchi University, how beneficial such data can be. They support all functions of a transport company: planning, dispatching, controlling of resources, expenses, and revenues. While they are common in public transit, the problem in freight railways is that we don't have working domain models there. There's a strong competition with small margins among more than 300 freight railway operators in Germany, and they all use handcrafted tools, PowerPoint and Excels. And the big operators like German Railways, Deutsche Bahn, are challenged with more than 30 incompatible programs for each step of planning and controlling of resources. This was a research task assigned to the University of Applied Sciences of Erfurt, my place, collaborating with a small software engineering company to develop a domain model for the freight railway operators and further stakeholders, and especially with the observation of the regulation, the European regulation regarding rolling stock maintenance. We work on that another year, and right now we'll look into some results and the general approach. So what does it mean that the data exchange in the domain models? We see here an overall graph with the different active roles in maintenance, the entity in charge of maintenance, ECM, and the role 2, for example, sets up the maintenance procedures. Then there are the fleet operators, that's role 3, and the actual workshops, independent again, that's role 4. And they all exchange data, do the invoicing, document for each vehicle what's being done. And we have in Germany more than 700,000 carriages, wagons, and locomotives. So that's a lot of information to be documented and to be exchanged. And we don't want to do that all by paper and email. So that's the overall goal of that research project. The results so far are that such digital solutions, especially domain models, will only succeed if the different actors, the workshops, the fleet operators, and the industry collaborate, and we combine this domain knowledge with the maintenance domain knowledge and with the users and IT specialists. Again, an interdisciplinary work, and that's my sort of guideline. This collaboration needs specific skills and methods. So let's turn to the educational research and transport. Skills and competences, know-how for sustainable transport. We see the sector with a lot of challenges that trigger change. In the middle, the individuum, we see the societal change, for example, with the climate change, the demographic change, a number of technical change going on in the international integration of railways, and the general changes in technologies like we've heard before with building information modeling, digitization, and of course, electrification, decarbonization. All these different challenges trigger change and lead to changing job profiles, new jobs, new profiles, and new qualifications needed. This has been realized by the European Commission. So we set up a research project to identify the skill gaps and react with training and education, implement solutions, and develop a sectoral skills strategy for the transport and railway sector. This project is carried out by 32 project partners across Europe, including the big railway operators, the rail industry, and the educational institutions. You see here a sort of a map how widespread this consortium is. The project runs in 3 phases. Phase 1, dealing with the identification of the general trends in the sector with specific views from the operators and the supply industry to identify the skill gaps and to meet the trends that are ongoing. We concluded that phase. Right now, we are in phase 2 with the development and implementation of new programs and evaluating their effects in terms of employability and career opportunities. And the 3rd phase will be a sector strategy and the dissemination. Like I said, the sector skills strategy communicates the results and transfers the results into continuous program updates. The results so far were that although we managed a gap analysis, program development, implementation, and validation take longer than 4 years. So we are already looking for a follow-up project. We also see that the operators, the international railway operators, are really willing to integrate and exchange. The suppliers hesitate a little, protecting their IP and market position. The biggest skill gaps, and I think that's very interesting for you and for us as academic institutions that design study programs and research programs. The biggest skill gaps are the holistic understanding of railway and transport systems with all their subsystems and interactions, the system thinking and system engineering methods. The students need to be fluent and need to apply. And very important, digital literacy, IT skills, and collaboration tools and methods. We already published some results, and afterwards, if you send me a message or an email, I'm willing to share, more than willing to share. We have reports on the current and future skills and competence needs in the domain. Almost 2 years, so 1.5 years ago, I presented international master's programs in railway, so cooperations between different countries at the UIC World Congress on Railway Training. And there has recently been an essay transforming the qualifications in the European railway sector. Unfortunately, that's only in German, but I think some of the colleagues are fluent in German as well. So I'm happy to share all these. Coming to the end of my presentation, the discussion and conclusion. What we've seen with the concepts and the skills research. For me, they are really intertwined streams, concept and skills, or technologies and talents. The design and implementation of sustainable transport means a deep understanding of the technologies we employ and the interaction and in the domain to fulfill the expectations, increasing capacities, cutting emissions, or mostly both. The educational research in railways and public transport is a new topic, where the domain knowledge needs to cooperate with educational experts and the industry and operators. Turning back to the guiding questions, I'll try to give some preliminary answers. So the core concepts that drive the transitions are the model shift to rail and public transport, electrification as the primary concept of energy transition, and domain models and digitization. The skills that are required to overcome the present challenges are, from my research results, the system engineering skills backed by a wide transport domain knowledge and acknowledging the interdisciplinary nature of sustainable transport systems with all their different infrastructures and vehicles. And third, identification of skill gaps. They are best researched and implemented by a broad interdisciplinary initiative with parallel evaluation of effects. So I have 3 takeaways of my keynote, and afterwards I'm really looking forward to get some questions and get into discussion. The interdisciplinary exchange and cooperation drives the changes in transport domain towards more sustainability. So it's really great that you set up that conference series. Transformation to more sustainable transport system needs to consider the local restrictions and the inherited networks. I discussed that on the example of Vietnam and New Zealand, but it accounts for all different places. And the benefits of international exchange and cooperation in research, training, and education cannot be underestimated. So once again, thank you very much for inviting me. Scene come on, and now I'm happy to receive your questions, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much for your nice presentation. I will to introduce Professor Mr. Lehmann. He background in the traffic engineering, with especially in the planning and operations, electronic traffic engineering. Now we had for him more question. Please give him question.
Good morning, Professor Lehmann. Thank you very much for your interesting presentation. So I have a small question. In Vietnam, more than 40% of the electricity is produced from coal. So it means that we are still depending on the thermal power plant. So is it suitable for the electrification shifting model for the sustainable transport in Vietnam? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And it's like I said, highly relevant to take into account the local restrictions. It's other countries as well, like for example, South Africa and Poland that rely heavily on coal. So we cannot discuss energy transition in the transport sector independent from the whole country. So, and that would be my recommendation as well. Not just to look into the transport sector, but you need to reach out into the general electricity sector or power sector to see how you could turn to renewable energies, which are fit for the Vietnam circumstances, and then to come up sort of with an integrated master plan for the energy supply, and then integrate that with the transport sector, with the building sector, and so on. That's the idea in Germany. The overall economic department tries to carry it out as an or as a strategy over all sectors.
Okay. Thank you very much for your sharing. Yeah, I have got a question for you. Exactly 3 questions. As you know, any industry, make the people forget. In your topic, you said that, the worker don't want to work, especially railway industry. The first question, why doesn't the worker want to work railway station? The second question, what is the challenge and difficult for railway industry in your country? The third question, the last one, Yeah, I saw a newspaper in English. Your country has government of your country commit to carbon neutrality by year 2050. The third question, the last one. In your opinion, would the current oil price in the world, how much USD burden for hydrogen power for transport would be the most suitable for market around the world today? Thank you.
So, I hope I get I hope I got at least two of the questions regarding the role of the industry, but yeah, maybe I would need some help again to be more clear with that question. But the last one on hydrogen, I got really good. So that's again a very difficult and not simple answer. There are a number of transport applications where hydrogen makes a lot of sense, especially if you're not on highways or in big cities where you have where electric solutions are better. But if you're more in rural areas with low traffic numbers, long distances, hydrogen could be a solution, either with fuel cells and combined with batteries. We see some areas with trucks where that is possible, and but also direct combustion of hydrogen. I'm presently in New Zealand, and we've just learned that here some companies look into that solution. But I want to say, especially looking in the generation of hydrogen, if you look in the efficiency, how inefficient hydrogen can be produced and then used, the direct use of electric energy when you come from renewables is in almost all situations preferable. So you really need to find the small or the markets, the areas where hydrogen is superior to other solutions. In cities and with large traffic numbers, I would always recommend electrification, electric solutions. And again, relating to the question before, electrification also makes sense if you have fossil power supplies, because it reduces the local emissions in the big cities a lot. So you reduce the emissions of all buses, of all passenger vehicles, of all trucks, and that can be really a relief in big cities, even if the overall energy chain and the overall efficiency is not transferred. It's worthwhile to look into that. And once you shift the whole energy sector into renewables, your transport system is already transformed. So that's sort of a smart approach in that field. And yeah, for the first and second question of your colleague, I would need some more details, not to guess into what direction to answer.
Okay, thank you so much for your very good information now. Now let's limit time. So if you have any question more from Professor, we can give him more question, and I later be send email for him and answer our. This is the time to learn time. Today, thank you very much for your keynote speaker in the morning. Afternoon, we have 5 sessions in the afternoon. Please go to the afternoon.
Thank you very much, and yeah, lot of success for your conference, and hope to see you soon.
So, thank you so much, everyone, for attending the plenary session in this morning. In the afternoon, we're going to have 5 parallel sessions that are already located in different rooms. You can check it on the conference program that we already saved a link in the website. So thank you so much. Now we come to take a break, and then we're going to prepare for the parallel session. Thank you so much once again.